Guys, Columbina info is finally here, the most anticipated character of Notcry without a single doubt. In this video we'll go over everything we know about her, and I will show some of the early calculations I made, so you can get an idea of how good this character is going to be. First of all, Columbina is a 5-star Hydro Catalyst, and she's already the third limited Catalyst 5-star we got in Notcry. Not complaining, because usually this weapon type makes for the more creative attack animations. She is first and foremost a sub DPS, meaning she will replace Aino on pretty much all of the Notcry teams. This was predictable, as the Hydro slot was the only weak link of these compositions. Even then, I will say Columbina's kit has a lot of surprising elements, which we'll see in a minute. Do you want to buy Genesis crystals at a lower price than usual? Let me tell you how you can do that. Iniba. Iniba is an official distributor that offers Genesis crystals at amazing prices, and that will allow you to whale for your favorite character in a less painful way for your wallet. All you have to do is make a profile on the site, select the deal you want, put in your Genshin user ID and server region, and press the buy button. This is all done in a very secure way, as the website offers foolproof transaction methods such as Google Pay, Apple Pay, and PayPal. On top of that, differently from most other web stores, Iniba is listed as an official distributor, which adds to its reliability. And that's not everything. What truly makes Iniba stand out compared to other web stores is that for every purchase you make part of it back in the form of Iniba credit on your virtual wallet. To get that, after buying something, you have to go to your order page and claim your money. You will then be able to use that credit to buy even more Genesis crystals, or even any other of the listed deals on the website. So, if you're a whale, like me, there are heavy benefits here. Overall, if you want to buy Genesis crystals, you should really do that from Iniba, which you will find by clicking on my link in the description below. Just like a lot of the Archon type characters that came before her, Columbina's elemental skill is very important. On cast, it summons a ring that will follow the active character, which is similar to Mavuika's elemental skill, and let's call it Moon Ring. This ring deals immediate AoE Hydro damage and then continuous Hydro damage throughout its duration, which is 25 seconds. Pretty long, which is very nice, but again, nothing unusual for an Archon type character. At the time I'm recording this video, the frequency of the attacks is not known, so I'm just assuming it's of around 2 or 2 seconds and a half. A more important part of the skill is that from the moment of its activation, it starts storing points, called gravity points. Every 2 seconds, a lunar reaction triggered by the team will restore 20 of these points, and upon reaching 60 points, Columbina will unleash a direct lunar attack, whose typing is based on the reaction type that contributed to the points generation the most. In practical terms, this means that Columbina will deal a strong attack every 6 seconds. These attacks, based on my assumptions, will contribute for the vast majority of her damage. Even if her normal Hydra attack frequency is 2 times as fast as what I'm assuming here, it wouldn't really change how it stacks up to her direct lunar damage particularly much, which makes sense since she's supposed to be the queen of lunar damage. The interesting part here is that it means that Columbina, other than dealing Hydro damage, also deals damage of different types, and she's the first non-animal character to do this. Since she pretty much deals all lunar reactions, this means that she will be a perfect pick against any of the Notcry bosses in Stygian, but this was obvious after all. Of course, Columbina enables all of these reactions for any team through her passive, so she doesn't rely on a specific Notcry character to activate it for her. This was needed because otherwise she practically wouldn't function if not teamed with the other Notcry characters, and surely Hoyoverse will never release a character like this. Moving on, her burst is very simple, as on cast it deals AoE Hydro damage and creates a domain which, according to its wording, increases lunar damage for the whole team and not just the active character. I think there is a possibility this might change, because the other example we have of this, so Nahida's elemental burst, only buffs the active character, but for now I would assume it works just as the wording states. Furthermore, the burst also gives teammates different effects depending on the exact lunar reaction they trigger. Specifically, it makes lunar electrocharge half a second faster, so it triggers every second and a half instead of every 2 seconds. Lunar crystallize has a 33% chance of having extra triggers, and lunar bloom grants 1 additional verdant dew every 6 seconds. This last one to me is the most interesting, because if like me you had a lot of pain using Nefer in the past few weeks because her combo cancels make her consume the available verdant dews way too fast, it seems like Columbina fixes this issue almost completely, if not completely. completely, and that would be awesome. I will not talk about lunar crystallites yet, because we still don't know how it works from a mathematical standpoint, and for this video I only want to focus on what we know for certain. Last but not least, Columbina increases the base damage of all lunar reactions based on her max HP up to 7% at 35,000 HP. Other non-Cry characters have the same effect for their specific reaction, but up to 14%, and here they're compromising with Columbina by giving her a worse buff, but for every lunar reaction in the game. All in all, I have to say that purely from a supportive standpoint, Columbina looks decent, but not super impressive. In that regard, she basically buffs the non-Cry characters a bit more than Constellation 6 Aino, while having much more quality of life, which is great, but I'm sure many of you may have expected more from her. She makes up for it with her own damage output, which is quite substantial, while Aino's is basically irrelevant, but overall it definitely feels like they've held back quite a bit with this character. It sort of makes sense to me, however, because the non-Cry teams were already very good while basically having an empty slot on the composition, and so if they made Columbina totally OP, things could have gotten out of hand very fast. Her leaning more towards damage output than support is also evident thanks to her special charge attack, which at the cost of 1 Burden Dew deals Lunar Bloom damage. Of course, this can only be used while she's on field, and it potentially opens up some very interesting main DPS roles for Columbina, but in this video I only want to focus on her supporting capabilities because that's what we know more of, and so I'll only focus on how she synergizes with Flints and Nefer. But first, let me remind you that if you enjoy my content but you haven't subbed yet, please consider doing so because it really makes me notice your support. So, as I just implied, the obvious pre-existent characters that benefit a lot from Columbina are Flints and Nefer. These characters already had pretty strong themes, but it's clear that they planned them with her in mind, because they weren't exactly top tier if compared to the best of the meta. Columbina changes the situation significantly for both and turns them into main DPSs that can pretty much go blow for blow with the likes of Mavuika if you ignore some of her highly advanced combos. In particular, regardless of what the numbers say, Nefer should see a more meaningful increase in my opinion, because the 3 extra Verdant Dews Columbina provides for her will really smoothen her rotation up a lot. It also potentially allows you to use Llama's Hold Elemental skill before Nefer's field time, because that consumes extra Verdant Dews which Columbina now provides, but in my opinion it's better to save those for Nefer's uptime and maximize on her cancels, but that's just me. Meanwhile, for Flames, the improvement should be fully damage oriented, since the team flowed pretty much perfectly with most Hydra pliers, and Columbina will be a massive upgrade to them in terms of power, but quality of life wise it should feel pretty much identical. Something I want to note is that, as I said before, a big part of the increase is thanks to her own damage output as opposed to her support, and this becomes a lot more evident the more you invest on Columbina herself. In fact, as of now, getting a Constellation 2 Columbina with a signature weapon would increase her own damage much more than other characters' damage from a relative standpoint. I don't want to go very in depth on the Constellation stuff yet, I'll do that in another video, but I just want to make this observation about her archetype really. As a result, while the teams get considerably better with her having the Constellation 2 for example, it's not a night and day increase, and specifically becomes less impressive the higher your investment on your main DPS is, because again, Columbina's investment layers currently benefit herself much more than the rest of the team. So, Columbina is a great character and she makes some of the best teams in the game, but in many ways, she reminds me of Nahida, in that she's not this insane support or damage dealer, but she's by far the best option in her niche, and she, as a result, improves her teams a lot. For this reason, she'll be a shining part of the meta for the next 6 months to a year. The only real flaw is that she really doesn't provide any support for teams that aren't from Not-Cry, and that's a bit disappointing. She will still deal great damage in those situations, but again, no support, so that's a bit underwhelming. And with this, I'm done for today. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe, and also go check in eBay in the links in the description below. Bye bye!